Good day everyone, so what happens when you take a saurian for a swim in Fontaine? Well, basically nothing, and the same would apply for the Wave Rider, any other saurian. Effectively the water doesn't register, and as you can see, the moment you get into your character, now you're underwater again. Really fascinating. It's questions like those, and whether you can buy a Kokomi from the battle pass if you've already C6'd her, that kind of keeps me up, and I want to take this glitched state of Genshin Impact and bring you some interesting insights in today's video, telling you a bit more about how the game works, what we found, and hopefully this will be a bit entertaining and you can also have a bit of fun watching some of the hilarious background footage. So how do we do this? Well, typically it involves a lot of simultaneous inputs, internet disconnects. There's a lot of techniques to glitching the live service of the game. We don't use any special tools or any hacks or any kind, so it's very unlikely that Hoya will ban myself and others doing this. I've been doing this for more than a year and a half. It's just using what is available in the game to get some funny outcomes. And once you've got this power to glitch the game in certain ways and continuously discovering new glitches, you can start to ask some questions like, what happens if you dive infinitely below the map? Do you see, if you look up, like the little like square shapes demarking like the plots and how the developers have set out the game boundaries above? There's so many cool things about just the state of Genshin Impact that you can answer. And obviously in this case, if you do dive infinitely below the map, you kind of get to an entirely new kind of scene. Typically, you won't be able to drop down infinitely below the map, and I'll explain that in just a moment, but typically when you're about 200,000 meters down the map, you can start to see some glitchy effects like there with Paimon. Effectively what happens is, and you'll see some of the characters here in the background, the game tries to calculate certain geometries and all sorts of, it does a lot of calculations, and because we are so far away, the game kind of glitches out due to floating point errors and rounding errors, and that's why the models and stuff seem to give you this kind of body horror effect, which can be fascinating. I'll go through a couple of the Genshin models and effects, and you can try and see what the differences are between like the normal and like this kind of very glitched out state. But let's get to the thing that I just mentioned. What happens when you go below the Genshin Impact map? Typically, below the map, infinitely across the entire game field, there is a teleport barrier. And if for some reason I would have been able to get out of the saurian whilst it was falling, my character would basically be stuck in mid-air because we're kind of in a glitch state. And the same applies across the map of Teyvat. There is a massive teleport barrier around the map as well. So typically you can go out of bounds. Let's say you can go beyond the Paimon barrier using a glitch, and if you go too far out of bounds, you'll be just like kind of immediately put into the downed state. In other words, this is the same as when you drown in Genshin Impact and your entire party is like kind of wiped out. And then what should happen if you're not glitching the game is that you should just be teleported. So effectively, whether you're going very far outside the Paimon barrier or you've accidentally fell down a hole and then you reach the bottom of the map and you're teleported, it's all the same. There's just a massive teleport barrier. Now what happens is that certain constructs like the Wave Rider, Sarush, the Saurians, they count as a vehicle of some kind, and I'll show you a bit of proof in just a minute. And what happens is when your character is in that vehicle, you can surpass the teleport barriers that are across the map. This means that whether you go down or like horizontally in any direction, you can just go infinitely. By the way, there's no like teleport barrier going up, so if you can find like a glitched way, like with Mavuika's motorcycle in 5.3, you can infinitely go to space in that way. But going out infinitely far beyond the map's boundaries, that requires like certain very special glitches. And in this case, you can see me just flying with a Kukasaur, and earlier we had the Koholasaur as well. And this is just like a fun way to do it. We basically break out of the shell of Genshin Impact, and there is quite genuinely nothing to see as you go up and like further away. In fact, I've even done a video in the past with the Wave Rider where we literally just sail off the end of the game map, and then that's kind of it. You just are just going in one direction forever and ever, and the moment you try and exit, your characters are immediately put into the down state, and then your game is stuck, and the only way to get out is either to relog back in which case the game will automatically teleport you if you're outside of the Paimon barrier, or you just teleport to Inkonomiya, or there's some other ways to like kind of break out of the glitch, although you'll lose the glitch state. Regardless, here you can see we are at Inazuma Island. We've just gone there from Tsurumi Island all the way down and found this weird kink in the map. I don't know why this is here. The music for Tsurumi Island still like plays, and I'll just like well, since this is like sped up footage, I can't really play it for you, but whenever you go beyond the Paimon barrier, the area that you were last in, that area's music is gonna play. So it doesn't matter if you go infinitely far out, the music that you had will be the music that's kind of registered, because the game keeps track of where you were last at, and it also keeps track of a whole bunch of things. So even if you go out infinitely far, if you put your foot somewhere on land inbounds, the next time you enter the game, you'll just respawn there. So that's kind of how it works. By the way, what's happening here in the background is we kind of fell with the Kukasaur, and now I'm just like quickly, rapidly climbing up using a Kukasaur specific glitch, and you can see there in the background is Inazuma, and now we're flying up so quickly that you can see we've already just like gone whoop beyond like the playable game area, and now it's just literally the whole of Teyvat is a blip below, and this is kind of how it looks on the upside. As you can see, after a while I've gone to about 100,000 meters in the air, and there's nothing really here except for me and for little Paimon. Now, one of the things that we can do here is keep on going up and up and up, and I'll show you now how by going up and up the camera itself cannot keep up with the Kukasaur, and what this is then going to allow us to see is how the Wave Rider icon registers on the Kukasaur. In other words, the Kukasaur is effectively, and all the Saurians are just effectively different variations of the base Wave Riders. You'll see it in just a moment. We're going to keep on going up and up and up, and after a certain point, once the Kukasaur accelerates way too far, basically the camera will stop being able to follow. We've already kind of lost Paimon, but you just summon Paimon with the like menu, which is kind of cool as well. But in any case, so there you go, we're just going up and up and up, and this takes a bit of a while, and this is ironically how I first discovered that the Saurians are just like Wave Riders, like a variation of the Wave Rider, and hence you can just exit the entirety of Teyvat. But yeah, it's just so cool. There you go, you can see Visorian just going away, and it's gone. And now look at that, that's weird icon coming on the screen. It's just a Wave Rider icon, or just like a special version of it. So there you go, that's the proof that you need. Here is little Paimon, and yeah, we can just summon Paimon, get back to where we were. I don't know how many meters we're up. There we go, we were about 30,000 meters just from that little bit of a stunt. But yeah, that's what I've got to show for you mostly for today. There's some cool things you can do with glitching. You can get some really fun effects. You can play the game, see what the developers are doing behind the scenes. My biggest complaint always is that the developers put so much rubbish. You really won't believe it, but they put so much rubbish on the outside of the game that no wonder the game like takes up these tons and tons of gigabytes. And it's not like empty textures that you can't go through. A lot of these are like legitimately like have solid collision, which is just like really bizarre. Pardon the bit of like background blur, I forgot that I've had certain mods loaded, so that's kind of a thing as well. In any case, regardless, so here we are, back to Watatsumi Island, and I think this is a very nice good way to end the video, showing you a bit of an aerial view of a place that I love very much. Alright, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.